So when we have a function of a complex variable z, we often write it as w equals f of z. Now z we normally write as x plus iy, and we can think of this function as mapping a point z to another point w, which we'll write as u plus iv. And so we can think of really two planes, an xy plane, the z plane, and points in this z plane get mapped to points in the w plane, which has real part u and imaginary part v. So a map is said to be conformal if it preserves angles. So what do we mean by that? Well, suppose that you've got some curve, or you've got a curve I'll call C1 and another curve C2 in the Z plane, and they meet at a point Z0. And then we say that W0 is equal to f of Z0. So the point Z0 gets mapped to some other point W0 in the W plane. And that C1, this curve, gets mapped to some other curve. I'll write it as C1 dashed or something. And C2 gets mapped to some other curve, C2 dashed. Now what we mean by preserves angles is that if you look at the angle here, whatever it is, then this angle here is the same. So it's the angle from curve C1 to C2, so the tangent to the curve C1 at Z0 to the tangent curve C2 at Z0. So that angle between the two curves, the two tangents to the curve, is preserved. So it's the same when you look at the W plane. Okay, so the curves get mapped to something completely different, but the angle between the curves at that point remains the same. That's what conformal means. So what does this mean? And another meaning of it is that if you were to have a very, very small shape, like a little triangle in the Z plane, then this little triangle, the angles of the little triangle would be preserved as well. But what could happen is that the triangle gets maybe rescaled, might get enlarged. So the triangle might end up here. But basically the triangle would stay the same shape. So little geometrical objects will stay the same shape when they get mapped by a conformal map. The other thing to say is that not only is the angle the same, but the sense is the same. So what we're saying is that it's the angle from C1 to C2 is the same. So you're not allowed to sort of flip this over. That would not be a conformal map.